AscendTMS, the world's #1 rated TMS software.
All right, I think the last few people are starting to log in now. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Cameron Parker. I'll be your presenter this afternoon. We're going to spend the next 30 minutes talking about AscendTMS and specifically how it's going to apply to you guys on the asset-based side of the logistics world. This isn't a tour, or I'm sorry, this is a training, or isn't a training. This is a tour. So we're going to go over the feature sets inside of the system. You can schedule yourself for actual live trainings Monday through Thursday, and I'll show you where actually to find that information at the end of this webinar. But what we are covering today is going to be a quick overview of all the features inside of the system, like what I like to call the meat and potatoes. And we're just going to go over those features and how you'll use them on your day-to-day operation. So without further ado, let's actually get stuck into the system. So we're gonna go ahead and get out of this and go into AscendTMS. So what you should be seeing is your load management screen, or well, I guess technically my load management screen on yours. So this is where you'll spend the vast majority of your time in the operations operations side of things. Whether it's dispatching your trucks or updating your customers or getting information from vendors, it all happens right here on load management. Now, just like any other TMS or any type of system you've used, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet or I hope not in 2021, but an actual whiteboard, but you'll understand that you have a lot of information both incoming and outgoing out of any system that you're using, and you need to be able to sort through that data with pretty much a good ease to it. So we have a few different ways, and what I like to call the foundation of a workflow, right, because that's the word I'm looking for, is a workflow, is based off of two things, and it is customizable. So it's going to be based off of the load statuses here on the left hand side and the tabs running across the top. So if I click on my planning tab, you'll see that I have a different load status set, as well as for ready for accounting and miscellaneous, and those are going to be your big four. All loads will be every live load that you have access to, because specifically I say that you have access to because there are ways to separate your data through branches and department management inside of AscendTMS. My loads is every load that is assigned to you based off of different roles. Now, I wish I had time to cover my commissions and my commission reporting in here. I just don't have the time in the 30 minutes that I'm allotted with you. But we do have commissions and commissions report that are based off of the roles, but not all roles have to be commissionable. But either way, if they're assigned to you, they'll appear in this tab here. I don't cover my externally posted loads inside of my asset-based webinar tour. If you guys want to see that, you can either watch the recorded broker webinar or join us on Tuesdays for our live broker webinars as well. And like I said, this is customizable. All you have to do is click on this cogwheel here on the left hand side, click customize tabs. Now you're actually not going to change the name of the tabs themselves, but you can actually change the names of the load statuses to match whatever verbiage you and your team are most used to. You can even change the color that will appear on the load management screen, as well as choose a singular tab or tabs that they'll appear in. It's completely up to you. And the reason it's that foundation or the workflow of that the foundation of that workflow is because that's a systemic change. So everybody that uses the AscendTMS account on this one will use the same load statuses, and every time that they update the load statuses, they'll go into the same load tabs. As the individual user, you do have the ability to customize the layout of your load management screen as well. That means these columns that are running across the top of the screen. Same place that I went to click customize tabs, except I'll go click customize tables, so that you'll have your different display preferences, like your location. So whether you want the location to be location name or city and state, you can even change the table font size that appears on your load management screen. Then down here at the bottom, or really at the top of the screen as well, is the list of all the columns. If you could imagine, the list would be from top to bottom, would be left to right on the load management screen. You can reorder these simply by clicking on the hamburger menu and dragging them into whatever order that you would like. So you can do show columns, which means exactly that. If you have a green check mark, that means that column is going to show. If you have truncate column selected, it means it's going to shorten. Here's your useless Snapple fact from your presenter for today. Truncate, the word shorten, right, is where the word swim trunks comes from, because I guess there were swim pants and they shortened them, hence why we have swimming trunks. Now, I know it's completely useless information, but it's the way that I remember it, so maybe it'll stick with you guys as well. But you can see that you have all of the columns to choose from, and you can do this not only on a per user level, but you can do this on a per tab level. So in case you need different information sets based off the life cycle of that load, you can have that set up inside your load management screen. Now, finding information inside of AscendTMS is also super easy as well, and there's a few different ways to do it. You can use the search bar here in your actual load management screen, which will search whatever tab that you're looking for. So say you have a driver, all he knows is his name, he doesn't know what load he's on, what truck he's on, whatever it may be. You literally could just type in his name, which is going to be David for this example, and it will find David's load that is active. Versus if I go to all loads, you can see that I actually have two different Davids, one for all seasons and one for my trucking company, that you'll be able to differentiate between the two, obviously by reason of deduction, or again, in this case, I'm set up for both asset and brokerage. If I was just strictly asset based, I could see that this load was delivered, so it's clearly not this load David is talking about, it's the one that's in transit that he's talking about. So there's one way to find information inside of AscendTMS, as well as you have a universal search, which will be able to find loads, different carrier and customer profiles, location profiles as well. You could just literally type it in. If you want to type in a load number, it'll pull up the load and it'll bring you right there, no matter where it is, whether it's on your actual load management screen or if it's in a accounting or archived state. You'll be able to find it throughout the entire system as long as you have access to that load. Again, remember, you can separate the information inside of AscendTMS. And then you want to talk about visibility of key data, right? And AscendTMS offers more visibility of key data than pretty much anybody else in the market. And the way that we do that is actually pretty neat. So if you notice, some of these columns have little underlines underneath them, right? I know that's a little redundant to say underneath them, but they do have underlines. And if you click on them, left click specifically, because right click actually has a completely different function inside, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit as well. You'll be able to see that you have ABC Wine and Spirits from Tampa, Florida. You have the full address of the location, and you'll be able to see the contact information. This applies to anything with that underline. You can get your driver information, you can get your reference numbers, you can get anything that you've inputted while building the load, which is the case for everything except the last contact, which is going to be based off of the check calls that you can do in the system. And we're going to talk about check calls here in just a little bit. So you have that visibility of that key data, so you don't have to worry about fumbling around and looking for different information inside of the system. You have it already literally at a click of a button to be able to either dispatch your drivers or update your customers. So let's talk about that second phase, which is going to be making check calls. If you guys don't know what a check call is, if you guys are brand new to the logistics world, check call is typically you've talked to somebody on the phone or via email, and you now want to log that conversation inside of your transportation management software to be able to not only keep yourself and everybody else in your company in the know, but as well as use that for information updates to whatever respective party is going to need it, right? So in the system, if you right click anywhere on the load, you'll get this little menu, which is called your shortcut menu. This is going to be your best friend, by the way. It allows you to edit loads, view or send load documents, because AscendTMS does generate all of your load documents for you, as well as a slew of different other check call modules. And we're going to mainly focus right now on the actual manual check call process, which is by clicking log check call. So that means I've picked up the phone. Now it says driver's name and driver mobile number. It could be whoever you spoke to, obviously. This one already has the driver information in there because it's on the load, so it will auto populate on there. You put in the details of that call. Now, if you're also wondering if AscendTMS is EDI capable, the answer is yes. We can do EDI setups for different trading partners to the point where we actually already have status and reason codes already mapped for you. If you guys know what that is, you'll probably appreciate that. If you guys don't know what it is, don't worry about it. It probably won't apply to you guys. You can apply this check call to different stop locations on the actual load, or you can actually enter in the current truck location. You can see that'll actually pull it up from Google as well, so you can do either an address or a city. So it's completely up to you guys, and that'll actually plot it on a map for you, which I'll show you where that map is here in just a little bit. Date, time, and then you click log check call and it'll update that information for you. You can see that each one of these will have different times on them. So that's the manual check call process, and that all will feed into what your load log. Your load log is a chronological order of every check call that has happened on that particular load, and it's sorted by the different, or I'm sorry, not sorted, but it is actually color coded by the different information or different types of check calls that you've done inside of the system, which I'll show you again in a little bit, as well as with the map, because that's where the map exists. But there's what we like to call our automated check call processes as well. Now, remember, everything inside of the system that I've talked about is included in the software. But before I get into this, I do want to bring you into one little quick feature that I almost forgot to talk about, which is going to be searching the load boards inside of the system. So I can click search load boards here before we get into the rest of the check calls, because again, this is included for your premium subscription, there we go, to be able to use for no additional cost. Now, this is a collection of all the load sources that we have integrated inside of the system for you to be able to search all at once with just a quick glance. Okay, so if I wanted to search 123 load board, C4, CH Robinson's Navisphere, Convoy, DAT, Truck Stop, or Uber Freight, I could do all of that if, and this is the big if I have an account with each and every one of these. So for those of you that think you're going to get DAT and Truck Stop for free from this, that's just not quite the case. You still have to have an account with them for this to be able to work. But if you do have an account with them, the most of these are free, like CH Robinson's Navisphere, Uber Freight, Convoy, and I do believe you can get 123 load board for free, at least for the load posting. I'm not sure for load searching. So you might want to just call them and double check that, but there's a chance that you get that for free. So in actuality, you'll only have to really pay for 2 of these, but you put in, just like any other load board that you've ever used, an origin location. You can put in your deadhead, your equipment type, whether you want a full, a partial, or both loads. You're going to be able to set your equipment length as well as your availability for that pickup, and then click search and you get all the results. Now, the reason I kind of cut off my train of thought before there, because I was already in my shortcut menu. If I do this, let's say on this load here, where it says search load boards, it's going to bring me to the same exact place, but it's going to auto fill in all the information based off of the previous load. So my origin location will be my last delivery. My equipment type is already filled in, as well as my equipment length. My availability, if the load delivered in the past, will be automatically set for today's date, but this load delivers on the 25th of May, so it's going to go ahead and be for today's date. So you'll be able to go ahead and see that information really ready. Or I'm sorry, that availability will already be set for you guys to be able to use, and then all you have to do is click search and you get those results. So this is a great way to keep your drivers loaded, find emergency backhauls, mind you, to be able to also kind of do driver pre-planning, or gonna get a feel for the market that you're going into the system, or into the actual lane. Maybe you're brand new to that lane, you want to be able to find how that lane is going to be getting out of it, because you've never done it before. So if that's not cool enough, right? So you have all that available to you, and again, it is included inside of your system. Now let's talk about those automated check calls, and the first 2 that I'm going to talk about is going to be request documents from driver and sending a text message. Okay, so the way this works is it's going to use, by the way, no driver application is required. All he needs to do is have, or she needs to do, is to have a smartphone. That's all. They don't need to download anything, and then they'll receive a text message. And what happens next is really based off of how the driver responds. If they respond back with an image or a document, it'll automatically attach itself to the load and upload itself to AscendTMS to exist in your viewer said load documents on that particular load. You can always know when a document has been uploaded via text message, because next to the upload source it says via text message, believe it or not. As well as update your last contact column. Now the same thing for when they actually send a regular text message respond, except it'll just update your load log as well as your last contact, and all that information will exist in there. You also have tracking availability. I know typically on the carrier side that you guys won't particularly use this because you will use probably whatever ELD GPS location that you have, but you could send a single tracking message, which again will send a text message with a link associated with it, and once they click that link it'll ping back his location, and then you can enable that to set up that request. Like this one's set up for every 6 hours, you could do it for every 2 hours, you could do it for every 3 hours, or whatever you want to do, as well as use one of our third-party integrations for tracking like ForeKite, Smart Capacity, and TransFlow. Now if you're familiar with Smart Capacity and TransFlow, you'll know that they do more than just tracking. They do a lot of document management stuff as well, and we are integrated with a vast majority of their product, and I'll show you where to find more information about them as well at the end of this webinar. We are also integrated, by the way, with Keep Trucking's ELD service as well, so you'll be able to find that information as well as so you'll be able to integrate with Keep Trucking for GPS tracking inside of the system, with more to come here in the future with a deeper integration with them on the horizon. And like I said, all that information will be logged into a load log. You can see here on the right hand side where you'll be able to see all that information, as well as a map with all the tracking events on them that will have dates and times inside of the system for you to be able to see exactly when that tracking event has occurred, as well as the check calls that you have logged with the current truck's location, or the truck's current location, for you to be able to monitor. Now the last place I do want to bring you inside of the actual system itself, at least on the load part of it, is going to be the edit stops area. Not because as a TMS I want to show off that I can actually have locations of the load, right? You'd hope that was the case, but because one of the biggest questions I get asked by new users or potential users are going to be or is the ability to calculate miles, and are they true commercial miles? So do I have the ability to calculate miles, and are they commercial miles? The easy answer to both of those is yes, but to give you a little bit more in depth of how this works, they're actually brought to you by a company called PTV Group. For those of you that don't know who PTV Group is, they're a German-based company. They're actually owned by Porsche, believe it or not. They did European logistics for many years and then made their way into the American market. They're currently doing all the routing for DHL and Coca-Cola as we speak. So these are true commercial miles. You don't have to do anything to get set up with them for you to be able to use this. It's just automatically on in the system, again, for no additional cost to you guys. And then once I have all that, I'll probably want to start talking about my database stuff. So things like adding locations and customers, which is very easy to do inside of AscendTMS. It's all based off of an integration with Google. So when I'm adding a new location into the system, it's actually doing a Google search in the background for me. So if I start typing in target up here, I can go ahead and pick this target field, which isn't exactly what I wanted, but it'll work. You can see that it'll auto-populate the information for me, the address, the name of the location. The only thing in theory I should have to change is the primary contact information. Obviously, just double check the address matches where you're supposed to go. And then when I'm adding my assets, this is where things get super important. So under power units, I can go ahead and scroll down all the bottom. I have a plethora of fields that I can go ahead and fill in if I wanted to. It's completely up to you guys. By the way, this is where your Keep Trucking vehicle ID would go for that integration that I mentioned earlier, as well as this is where your maintenance log will exist for your assets. Your drivers is the most important part, obviously, because they're the ones that actually drive the trucks. The power units and the trailers, they pretty much look identical when it comes into it, the different layouts. But when it comes to the drivers, down here at the bottom, again, plethora of information I can choose to fill out if I want to, as well as a driver violation log down here at the bottom. But all the way at the very bottom is going to be the driver pay schedule. So this is where I'll set up specific line items that are associated to this driver that will feed into what's called your driver pay report, and will also help generate your driver pay settlements. So the way that this works right now is going to be you set up a pay item that will either be on a load, or you'll set up a deduction, things like fuel advances, trailer fees, if the tax, whatever it may be that isn't quite associated with the load that you have to take away money during a pay period. And then once you have those all set up and they're added to the respective loads, and you've got the correct balances set up and everything, under your accounting, driver pay management, you'll put in your date range, and then you'll either be able to do it for all drivers or a singular driver to be able to pick that or export that driver pay settlement sheet. Now, I don't claim to be a payroll expert, nor have I ever ran payroll in my entire life. But there are people that are not only familiar with trucking payroll as well as AscendTMS. That's going to be our partnership with Superior Trucking Payroll Services. I highly suggest, if payroll is a big headache for you guys, you give these guys a call or shoot them an email. They could definitely help you set up not only your Ascend but your accounting software as well. So if that's something that actually creates heartache and headache in your company, I highly suggest reaching out to those guys as well. And now the other bits of reporting that we're going to probably want to talk about are going to be things like your load reports. This is a dynamic reporting tool, not like a lot of the ones that you guys are used to. So there's not going to be a button that says customer report or location report or truck report. It's all going to be based off of different search criteria. So if I wanted to do a customer report, I would actually just type in the customer's name. You can see that I have two instances of Dr. Pepper Dallas Fort Worth. I'm going to choose the one that says customer because we're talking about a customer report. And then I just click search down here at the bottom. We're going to skip over this real quick. And then here at the bottom is a preview of the report. Here at the bottom is a preview of the report. So you'll be able to actually... Here at the bottom is a preview of the report. So this is great for those of you just looking for information really quickly, especially if you're just looking for how much a lane has paid in the past. You just go ahead and look here. You don't have to export the whole Excel spreadsheet or CSV format, by the way, if you guys don't use Excel. To do that, by the way, you just go ahead and click this blue button here. It says export report. Now, my favorite feature here at the top is going to be the the summary of the report itself. As somebody that's had to run these reports in the past, this is probably the most helpful tool for me because all the KPIs I'm typically looking for exist right here. You've got your total revenue, your total expenses, your total profit, my averages broken down even to the per mile, as well as a gross margin percentage. And I didn't have to be a mathematician or Excel spreadsheet guru to be able to get those. All I had to do was actually run the report, and it gives it to me for free, right? Now, I probably got some of you on this call as well that are probably thinking, well, Cameron, I've got this super intricate report that I have to do every time, or every Tuesday or every Wednesday, that I'll have to fill out those search criterias every time. And that just seems kind of daunting for me to be able to undertake. And trust me, we've got you covered there as well. If I click here, I'll have a list, and this list is of saved reports, right? So what I did in the past was I filled out all these search criterias. I clicked this green button that says save report. Now it exists in the drop down. So if I go ahead and do my customer report for Dr. Pepper, now this isn't super intricate as well. I added a search term of Dr. Pepper. I couldn't think of anything good, but I also have origin and destination states associated with this as well, Texas to Florida. So if I go ahead and rerun my report, I'll see that my 18 loads went down to 15 loads, and it's not a huge difference, but it is a difference nonetheless. The other reports, like I said, I won't have time to cover for. I just do want to mention are going to be commissions, like I said. You also have an if the tax calculator report as well. It helps you run your if the taxes. It won't do it for you, but it will help you as well. And then the last but not least is going to be your ARP report. So this is the report that's based off of when you've sent an invoice or you've recorded a received bill. Now, the cool part about this is actually how my users are using this, pun intended. But they'll export their accounts receivable into an Excel spreadsheet because you have that option. And then they'll break it down by customer to use it as a collection sheet to show how many loads they have for that customer, how many are past due, and hopefully be able to settle those invoices. Now, speaking of invoices, that's where the magic really happens, in the invoices and bills area for accounting. This is where you'll be able to select either a singular invoice or multiple invoices. Now, we do have integrations with QuickBooks Online and Desktop for you to be able to export them. I'm going to go ahead and select a multiple of invoices here real quick. So let's grab about 4 of them. And then I've got a few options here at the top. I can factor my invoices because I do have integrations with quite a few different factoring companies, with more on the horizon. So you'll be able to see those under our partners list on our marketing website, as well as you can always just ask us in our support team which ones that we have available to you. But if you don't have one, or if it's not one of the factoring companies that we have integrated that you're using, don't worry, we still have ways to make your invoicing processes easier. You can receive a payment, you can export it to QuickBooks, and then you can email the invoices as well. When you click email invoices, you'll be able to see that it actually breaks it down by customer. So even though I had 4 invoices selected, I only have 3 being shown right now. So that means I'll go through the steps and the processes for these 3 invoices for that customer, and then I'll go through the next set of invoices, or invoice for in this example, that I'll be able to go through. Bills will work exactly the same way, well, similarly, because it's a bill, not an invoice, as your invoices. The only difference being is going to be the ability to not send, but you'll record a received invoice. So we do a great job of letting you know when you haven't done that, because you get a big fat 0 where it says bills, and your bill date, your due date, your amount bill, and balance to pay will not actually generate until you've recorded that received bill. And then you can apply payments to obviously both the invoices and the bills to make sure that balance is brought down to 0. And last but certainly not least is going to be your settings area. So this is where you'll set up your company contact information, as well as upload your company logo. That way the system generated documents will have your logo on them. You can also customize your drop down list, like your commodity, your pay items. We've already talked about load statuses, I didn't skip over that. Truck length, truck type, and truck status for the load building processes. You can add T's and C's and other legal jargon to all of your documents that are sent from the system here in this option in the middle. You also can set up all of your premium and your external integrations here under premium features and billing details. Under the add or edit users, you have full control over your users, by the way. You never have to call it to get them added, changed, or removed. You can do that all yourself, as well as you can set up different permissions groups in the system. I'm not going to go over every permission, but the big thing I do want to talk about is that administrator will have access to everything, including the settings. They're the only ones that they have access to settings, as well as they're not customizable at all. The rest of these are fully customizable, except you can't add settings to them. But that's it for me today, guys. I do appreciate you taking the time and learning about AscendTMS. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week. Thank you so much. Questions? Feel free to reach out to my amazing support team at support@inmotionglobal.com.
AscendTMS, the logistics software for everyone. To stay up to date with the latest help videos and tutorials for AscendTMS, click that subscribe button. That way you can always be the first to know.